Boom, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. This is the post-game show of Iowa Hawkeyes 41-10 victory over Western Michigan. Usually I'll do a live show. Couldn't do it today. As you guys can see, got a little bit of sun. I'm a little red. So just a little busy. Wasn't able to do the live show, but still putting out this content for you guys. The Iowa Hawkeyes improved to 3-0 on the season. We're going to take a look at the game, talk about the pros, talk about the cons, areas of concern, and areas of growth after today's victory. By the way, guys, if you guys aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button, smash that thing. We're so close to getting to 2,000 subs. I can feel it. Support a fellow Iowa Hawkeye fan out. At the very least, like, comment, share. You guys know the drill. And without further ado, let's get into this. So let's start with the poor, shall we? I think the easiest thing to start with is Cade McNamara. Okay, because, well, actually, let's start with this. Okay, Iowa was very sluggish to start the game. They were sluggish all the way up until approximately midway through the second quarter. Iowa dominated from henceforth. And really, the tale of the game is LaShawn Williams. Iowa put the game on LaShawn Williams' back, and he looked like an all Big Ten caliber running back. He looked like a veteran. And this was the type of performance we have been waiting to see from an Iowa running back for quite a long time, guys. And it was really good to see that. And that's pretty much the summary of the game. Western Michigan was leading as late as they were up 7-0, 10-7. Like I said, all the way up until approximately midway through the second. Now, getting back to the negative. And I would say it's very straightforward, guys. And it's been a continuous issue since game one for the Iowa Hawkeyes. We saw it against Iowa State, and it's still an issue. And that is the incorporation of the Iowa wide receivers. At this point, it really seems like the only wide receiver that has any sort of ability at all for Iowa is Seth Anderson. And it's hard to really tell without game tape and to be able to see or not see the separation that is or is not being created by the Iowa wide receivers. Now, you know, you can hear game reports from people who are at the game and things like that. And, you know, there's been times where it has been reported that Cade McNamara has missed throws, that there was somebody open. By the way, guys, I'm just checking out really quickly how Keegan Johnson is doing for Kansas State. Pretty quiet game for him. And it's the same now, guys. It was the same. You know, Iowa was able to connect with Seth Anderson once or twice. They were able to connect with Deontay Vines twice for 7 yards and a touchdown. But guys, that's just not going to cut it. It's not going to cut it when your top three receivers have a combined 24 yards. It's not going to cut it, guys. That is abysmal. And it's worrisome. It is, because moving forward, what teams are going to start doing is just completely taking away the tight end option for Iowa. Eric All, Steven Stalianos, hopefully Luke Lachey is okay. He got hurt in this game. I really hope he's okay. I'm just hoping that he's not out for the rest of the season, to tell you the truth. I can live with him missing the Penn State game, because Iowa still has another good tight end in Eric All. But this is problematic, guys, because teams will start to stack the box. Now, of course, the true measurement of a good offensive line and good run game is to be able to run the football when everybody in the stadium knows that you're going to run the football. But I just think, and I said this last game, I think that Brian Ferentz needs to look at easier ways to get touches to the wide receivers. Bubble screens, slants, easy, quick passes that can get them involved, that aren't high-risk plays and things like that. Because a lot of the targets that we're seeing are like 10, 15 yards down the field. And not only is that questionable because of the wide receivers Iowa does or does not have, but mainly because Cade McNamara does not have the biggest arm. Cade McNamara, a quarterback like Cade McNamara, is the most successful when he is making short to intermediate passes. And time again, and I'm not against it as far as Brian Ferentz goes. I like the aggressiveness. But as far as looking at your quarterback and assessing what his strengths and weaknesses are, I think Iowa would be far better off, really operating in that short to intermediate range in order to open up the long play. Cade McNamara struggles so mightily down the field. At least 20% of his downfield passes have either been totally underthrown or intercepted and things like that. So I would like to see that happen. And we used to see that from Brian Ferentz. We used to see him doing these screen passes and these short, quick hit plays. But we haven't seen it for a while. So Eric All had one really good catch. He was largely quiet for the rest of the day. It was really good to see Steven Stylianos get some run. And, he looked okay. He had 2 receptions for 29 yards. Not bad. True sophomore Addison Ostrenga got some reps finally. 2 receptions for 19 yards. If Luke Lachey is out, Iowa will likely do what we just saw here, which is Eric All is the main tight end who never leaves the field, or rarely ever leaves the field. And the second tight end position is split between Addison and Steven Stylianos. Here's the defensive stats here. Quinn Schultz had a pretty good game. A lot of his tackles came from the big chunk plays that Western Michigan got. Pretty much all of the offensive production Western Michigan got can basically come down to 4 plays. Nick Jackson had a really good game. Jay Higgins had a really good game. Iowa finally has 2 sacks, got 2 sacks in this game. That's good. That's good to see. Iowa had 0 sacks against Iowa State. So lastly, as far as the negatives go, and I already touched upon this, but Cade McNamara, his play is slightly concerning. Okay. Thus far, Cade McNamara, in his time as an Iowa quarterback, has been average to below average, to be brutally honest. Okay. His statistical numbers have been average to below average. Okay. In this game, he went 9 of 19, 103 yards, 2 TDs, and 2 INTs. I think Iowa continues to use Cade McNamara like they would use Nate Stanley or like they would use Spencer Petras, but he's not. He's not either of those guys. He's far more mobile, and he doesn't have the downfield arm strength that either of those quarterbacks have. But in the short to intermediate, he's far more accurate. So I'm hoping Cade McNamara can look at the tape and get this figured out. You know, he did have 2 touchdown passes, which isn't too bad. But guys, barely breaking the 100-yard mark and having less than 50% of your passes completed is concerning. Now, on to the positives. Obviously, LaShawn Williams, and I already did some positives with the Iowa defense. Iowa's defense is elite. Yes, there were some big chunk plays, but guys, they limited Western Michigan to 10 points. That was my prediction. I said Western Michigan would only score 10 points. I was wrong about Iowa's 41 points. By the way, if you're wondering why or how Iowa got to 41 points, the answer is blocked punts, interceptions, and excellent field position for the offense. And, of course, LaShawn Williams. LaShawn Williams, 145 yards, was huge. This offensive line opened up a lot of holes for him. That's positive. That is definitely something to glean on moving forward, is this offensive line starting to come together. We've seen the excellent, the good pass pro. Now we started to see some action on the ground. That's really good to see. LaShawn Williams, MVP. It was really good to see true freshman Kamari Moulton. He's got a lot of speed. He really reminds me of Akram Wadley. I think he's probably slightly more explosive, but he runs in a very like uncanny way. Like it's kind of stringy, at times can be smooth. You know, he's not a bruiser. He's kind of a dancing running back. And, you know, but his body type reminds me a lot of Akram Wadley, you know, 5'10", 5'11", kind of, you know, not the biggest, you know, less than 200 pounds, but can hit holes fast and hard, and, you know, has agility and just kind of has this uncanny, kind of goofy way of running the football. But of course, Akram Wadley, as he got later in his career, I mean, he was a very smooth running back, very smooth. So, you know, it's good to see him, and I like the comparison of him to Akram Wadley, and I guarantee the Iowa coaching staff sees the same thing with him. They have very similar builds and very similar skill sets. He had 2 touchdowns. It was good to see Terrell Washington Jr. get in there, another true freshman out of Texas. Josiah Patterson, largely. Iowa deferred to LaShawn, Kamari, and Terrell. Now, perhaps, you know, they wanted to give them more run. I don't know if Josiah went down with an injury. Perhaps, you know, Iowa really was strategic in trying to get them a lot of touches. And, you know, primarily they were okay with LaShawn getting the bulk of the touches. But it looks like Iowa has several running backs at this point that can be productive. I think it was a wise decision to have Caleb Johnson rest. We don't know if his ankle injury is worse than what we think. But I would rather him miss this game in order to be more healthy for Penn State. So we'll see what happens there. So that's pretty much it, guys. Iowa moves to 3-0. Here are the team stats. Iowa almost had 400 yards of total offense, which is not bad. This was definitely their best statistical offensive output we've seen all year. 133 passing yards, 250 yards on the ground. Yards per play, 6, 19 first downs. Iowa's defense only held them to only 8 first downs. Time of possession, 33. You know, they only had one penalty. You know, Drew Stevens missed a kick. I would like to see him make that, of course, you know, but I'm sure he'd like to have that back. It was well within his range. It was a 41-yarder. He probably should have hit it. So, all right, guys, that's going to be pretty much it. Iowa improves to 3-0. They have Penn State. It's going to be a huge test. I'm kind of like somewhere in the middle regarding how I feel about that game. I do like Iowa's improvement along the offensive line, especially in this game. I like what we've seen from the running backs for Iowa, the entire group. You know, Caleb Johnson has not had a huge game yet, but by and large, I like what I've seen. As I said, the wide receiver Cade McNamara connection is concerning, but you know, anytime you have a defense like what Iowa has, you will have a chance. Has Iowa's offense improved enough to be prepared for Penn State? We'll see. We'll see. You know, I think I'm leaning towards Iowa not quite being ready for that game yet, but we'll see. I'll check some Penn State highlights out, and we'll see. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening. As I said, Iowa improves to 3-0 on the year. Iowa State lost to Ohio, of course, making Iowa's victory over them seem not as good as it did last week. You know, you can only play the games that are on your schedule. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Help me get to 2,000 subs by the end of the football season. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. In facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you guys. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.